высоко поднимемся кубок веселья, и жадно прильнем мы устами, как дорог душе светлый миг наслаждения.
He served in the army, and in the evenings he rode on horseback to the Poltava Opera House. He tied a horse at the entrance and went to sing Lensky, Lohengrin, Faust, and soul romances for his many admirers. His fame grew at lightning speed. The voice of the eminent Ukrainian was admired by the head of the USSR, Joseph Stalin, who was clearly a fan. And the legendary Charlie Chaplin dreamt of shaking hands with the artist. The lyrical tenor of this legend of world art has been heard by audiences for almost 80 years. Lyrics of the enthusiastic poet from a Tchaikovsky opera, the grotesque Prokofiev's Prince in Love with Three Oranges, the bright messenger of the Grail by Richard Wagner, Ivan Kozlovsky, the story of an unfading star. Ivan Kozlovsky was a very lively and charming man. He loved to joke, to proclaim long toasts, to prank friends. He loved horses, tennis, showered women with compliments. But his main favorites were his daughters, Anna and Anastasia. We'll tell you about what was often thought of and what was unthinkable to forget. Just share some of the impressions of life associated with our father. We really miss him.
Обителью родивого отняли копеечку.
The drama and tragedy of Ivan Kozlovsky's voice, who performed the aria of God's Fool from modest Mussorgsky opera Boris Godunov, brought him unfading popularity. Critics believe that this role became the peak of the outstanding Ukrainian's vocal creativity. The singer performed the part on stage for more than 40 years, and the story began in a small Ukrainian village. Maryanivka. It takes just over an hour's drive from Kiev to this picturesque village. Now it's part of Vasilkiv Rayon. Here, this memorial house museum holds the memory of the countryman. Outstanding opera singer Ivan Kozlovsky was born in these very walls in 1900. Father Semyon Osipovich did not have a musical education, but he was very good at playing the Viennese harmonica. His mother, Anna Gerasimovna, sang well. Mom dreamed that I became a priest. I was sent to the school. From there, I was within reach to the rank of bishop. After that, they took me to the seminary, where they studied for 4 years as a priest. If you wanted to become a theologian, a year more. Then you can enter the academy. I lived in the St. Michael's Monastery. St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev is a unique monument of architecture. The temple was built in the first half of the 11th century by Prince Yaroslav the Wise. Here, the seminarians of the St. Michael's Monastery often sang. Among them was Ivan Kozlovsky. Church chants remained the leitmotif of all his creative life. On major Christian holidays, he was the soloist in the choir of one of the Moscow churches. Like most teenagers, the boy's voice began to mutate. Vanya was temporarily banned from singing, but idleness quickly bored him, and he escaped from the monastery choir. He wanted to go to the front of the First World War, but some soldier took the youngster off the train. To survive, he sang church psalms in the surrounding villages. Soon he settled in the choir of the Trinity National House in Kiev. The talent developed. After some time, the guy was invited as a soloist to the big academic choir. They were led by the famous Ukrainian composer and choir master Alexander Koshets. He became the first professional mentor of the young talent. One of the buildings of the Kyiv National University of Theatre, Film and Television, named after Ivan Karpenko-Kary, is located on the Old Podil. The history of this prestigious institution stretches back to 1904. Back then, through the efforts of the eminent Ukrainian composer Mykola Lysenko, a music and drama school opened. Over the years, the alma mater of many stars of the theater and cinema has undergone more than one transformation. In 1917, the Kyiv Institute of Music and Drama was functioning here, where Ivan Kozlovsky came to audition. Olena Alexandrovna Muravyova became the teacher of the new vocal department student. She sharpened more than 100 voices, but she never met such a voice like that of the lyric tenor Ivan Kozlovsky. Aged 19, Kozlovsky voluntarily went to serve in the Red Army. The singer often recalled that it was during his years as a soldier that he truly revealed his vocal talent. Thanks to the army, I became an opera performer. I served in the 22nd Rifle Brigade of Engineering Troops, which was based in Poltava. It was commanded by former Tsarist Colonel Chernyshov. He knew a lot about music and convinced his commissioner Naidonov. Soldier Kozlovsky is a unique treasure of the Republic. He should sing in the opera. Not very well educated, Naidonov took up the task with proletarian responsibility and quite firmly forced this treasure to serve in the Poltava Music and Drama Theater. Since our rifle brigade was standing outside the city, I rode to the theater on my horse. I tied it up and walked onto the stage. My appearance on horseback reassured members of the audience who were themselves in a hurry to the theater. They would not be late, because Faust is still riding the city's streets. In the days of performances by Soldier Kozlovsky, the first 3 rows of the stalls were occupied by fellow soldiers. Instead of tailcoats and bow ties, there were machine gun belts with rifles and grenades. Our father had the brightest memories of the Poltava theater. It was there that a beginner artist first sang many parts from his operatic repertoire: Natalka Poltavka, May Night, Yevgeny Onegin, Dubrovsky, Faust, La Traviata, Rigoletto. On the stage of this theater, I was lucky enough to meet such luminaries of the Ukrainian stage as Panas Saksahansky, Maria Zankovetska. The path to fame continued. Ivan Kozlovsky worked in the troupe at the Kharkiv Opera Theater. His brilliant debut in Faust enabled the young artist to take a leading position in the company. A year later, rejecting the tempting and flattering offer from the famous Mariinsky in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, the artist arrives at Sverdlovsk Opera House, and in 1926, the name of Kozlovsky first appears on posters in Moscow. The Bolshoi Theater is one of the largest in Russia and one of the most significant opera and ballet theaters in the world. The complex of buildings is located in the heart of the capital of the Russian Federation, on an old square. Dad arrived at the Bolshoi Theater with a ready repertoire, but this did not mean that he felt confident and calm there. After all, only having entered the building of the Bolshoi, you already feel a thrill. The thought springs to mind: how many outstanding artists have these walls known, how many generations? And the famous columns seem not to be material, but filled with spirit, the essence of great art. It was within these walls that the voice of Ivan Kozlovsky first sounded in La Traviata. He played the role of Alfred. Opera singer and teacher Natalia Spiller recalled. The timbre of his voice, the manner of singing, the acting talent, everything in the young artist then revealed a distinct, rare individuality. Kozlovsky's voice was never very powerful, but the free extraction of sound, the ability to concentrate it, enabled the singer to cut through large spaces. Kozlovsky can sing with any orchestra and with any ensemble. The elasticity of breathing, flexibility and fluency, unsurpassed ease in the upper register, refined diction, a truly flawless vocalist. In the very first season of work at the Bolshoi, teacher and theater worker Vladimir Nemirovich Danchenko said to Kozlovsky, "You're an unusually brave man. You are going against the flow and not looking for sympathizers, rushing into the storm of contradictions that the theater is currently experiencing. I understand that it is difficult for you and there is a lot that scares you, but because your brave creative thought inspires you and your creative style is easy to see everywhere, keep swimming, don't stop, do not smooth corners, and do not expect sympathy from those whom you seem strange to." At the initiative of Nemirovich Danchenko in 1938, Kozlovsky created the state ensemble of the USSR opera. He then becomes its artistic director. He also performed as director. During the 3 years of the ensemble's existence, Ivan Sergeyevich Kozlovsky performed a number of opera productions in concert performance. Werther by Massenet, Pagliacci by Leoncavallo, Orfeo ed Euridice by Gluck, Mozart and Salieri by Rimsky-Korsakov, Katerina by Arkas. He continued to sing from the Bolshoi stage, where the grateful audience showered him with applause. According to eyewitnesses, on rehearsal days, huge crowds would gather around the theater. People were arguing which door their idol would come out of. Kozlovsky's ardent fans had an advantage. They already knew that the singer always went in and out through the same door. However, the singer's relationship with Bolshoi's management was not good. He was unexpectedly fired in the late 1930s. The head of the USSR, Joseph Stalin, returns Kozlovsky to the stage, assigning him the title of People's Artist of the Soviet Union and awarding him an order. But he was allowed to sing only on the territory of the state. He was allowed to tour overseas only after the Second World War. At a festive concert in honor of victory over Nazi Germany, the tenor sang in Potsdam. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill then admired. A singer like Kozlovsky can be proud of any country in the world, including Italy, which traditionally valued the bel canto style. It is not easy to be an operatic tenor. The great bass Fedor Shalapin cracked this joke. Being a tenor is a physical defect. Kozlovsky's voice has a large dynamic range from 75 to 150 decibels. No one else has to be so careful of droughts, to rap as well from autumn to spring, to answer the questions with a lowing, so as not to open one's mouth on the street without good reason. That was a real punishment for the concert organizers. It was monstrously difficult to persuade him to perform once again. Even if he had made a promise, Kozlovsky was always looking for a reason at the last moment to refuse to sing. And if he did sing after all, then it was at half strength. He was saving his voice. Kozlovsky, a deeply religious believer, was very superstitious. What's there to say about a cat that ran in front of the wheels of his car? Ivan Kozlovsky would turn the car around and use another route. If the musical score fell to the floor, someone had to sit on it immediately. Having come somewhere for the first time, Dad threw some millet around. Before leaving home, he threw a coin. And he put the same on the rails before getting on the train, like, keep the evil eye away from me. When he went on stage, the cleaners quickly removed the empty buckets from his eyes, otherwise he could refuse to sing. It must be said that father sang all his life in the same shirts. Some were duly darned and repaired, and carefully saved worn shoes. He carried sheet music in the same briefcase for 40 years. In the end, the cracked handle had to be wrapped with wire. Why all these rituals, they asked him. Ivan would knock 3 times on a piece of wood, spit 3 times over his left shoulder, and whisper in frightened voice, "God forbid I lose my voice." In Minsk, now the capital of the Republic of Belarus, a story took place that separated Kozlovsky from the Bolshoi theater forever. In the early 1950s, local artists went without their salaries for several months. The audiences were poor, they didn't visit the theater, but they came to hear Kozlovsky. The singer gave several concerts, and Minsk artists received the sum owed from the proceeds. The authorities were annoyed that one artist was stronger than the state. A feuilleton appeared in the all-union newspaper Pravda. The singer was accused of saying that he takes 1,000 rubles of his famous top C, and this is not worthy of a Soviet person. Ivan Kozlovsky was offended. He left the Bolshoi and hardly appeared in public for 2 years. Father was bound to indestructible spiritual ties to Ukraine, his homeland, all of his life to the very end. He loved Ukraine devotedly and gently with the love of a son. He loved its customs, outdoors, the language. He often spoke to his sister in Ukrainian. My father collected and worked on Ukrainian Christmas carols and was a unique performer of Ukrainian folk songs. In the House Museum of Taras Shevchenko in Kiev he sang, "I care not whether I shall live or not in Ukraine." And he did it not for the audience but for the poet Shevchenko. And in the Manor Museum of actress Maria Zankovetska he sang, "Oh, there's a lake in the field." He believed that by remembering the dead, we continue their lives. He was a deeply religious believer. He prayed every morning. In short, let me God, let live long and sing well.
За Христом ганявся, він за ним дуже побивався.
In the 60s, Ivan Kozlovsky had the idea of releasing Christmas carols on records for broader audiences, to introduce his listeners to the mellows of Ukrainian folk songs. The Karina and Ruzana Lisitsyan sisters duo, as well as the chorus of the big symphony orchestra of the All-Union Radio and Central Television, were enlisted into this project. To begin with, they wanted to perform the repertoire on the stage of the Great Hall of the Conservatory, but they didn't get permission. It was Russian folk art that was primarily promoted in the USSR. It was considered as advanced and popular, but listening to the ritual singing of Ukrainians was seen as tasteless and even harmful. He had to record carols on the radio in secret and later at the Melodia record label. Kozlovsky's private secretary Nina Slezina recalled, "This time fortune smiled on us, and we safely bypassed the obstacles of the censor. Our joy was immense, and soon in some Moscow stores appeared long-awaited records with our Christmas carols. We decided to go to visit Ivan's homeland, that is Kiev. We managed to find out that a signal arrived from Moscow that at the end of 1969 the Christmas carols were cut from a broadcast. So a Kiev ministerial official of the Department of Culture instructed, do not broadcast Christmas carols performed by Kozlovsky either on the radio or on TV, or in philharmonic concerts."
Чорні брови, карі очі, темні, як нічка, ясні, як день. Карі очі, очі дівочі. Ви навчились зводить людей.
And in one of the music shops in Lviv, Ivan Kozlovsky witnessed several plainclothes men jumping up and down on 400 vinyl records of recordings of Ukrainian carols. Back then, it seemed to the singer that his voice was being trampled on. This incident did not cool the artist's creative zeal. He is looking for other ways to promote the vocal heritage of the Ukrainian people. The artist decides to build a music school for local children in his home village of Maryanivka. But officials in Moscow opposed this initiative by him. They said if you build such institutions in every village, you won't get enough money. Yet it was difficult for them to withstand the pressure of a popular and respected singer. Father was a stubborn man. No matter how many explanatory conversations were held with him about the fact that under socialism it is impossible to legitimize the construction of a children's music school at the expense of a private person, his father acted on the principle of Krylov's famous children's tale. Vaska listens, yes, but still he eats. And the artist nevertheless achieved an incredible thing. Under the communist system in Ukraine, a music school was built at the expense of Kozlovskyi in the village of Maryanivka, Kyiv Oblast, or rather the funds were deducted from his concerts. Now the singer often brought children from this village music school to Moscow. He sang on stage with them as an equal with equals. The children's choir of the Maryanivka Music School visited Moscow many times to perform. Of course, they could not do so without the help of my father, who was making arrangements and always sent them on the Christmas tree party in the Kremlin. He saw his voice as a gift from God and protected it a great deal. He was careful of draughts, was silent before performances all day, and did not eat dinner. At the end of 1992, Kozlovsky lost his voice and spoke in a whisper. But he showed the notes in full voice to his students, and the timbre remained the same as always. At piano rehearsals, he never talked about everyday affairs. He went to another room for this, so that the instrument could not hear the words. Ukrainian opera singer Bela Rudenko recalled, "He got old in a very beautiful way. He never became an old man. He remained alive, mobile, slim. Did not miss an opportunity to say a compliment to a woman. Until the last days of his life, he visited almost all the concerts in the Great Hall of the Moscow Conservatory. When he liked an artist or author a great deal, he blessed him, and in a very peculiar way, he showered them with grains of wheat or offered a lit candle." Kozlovsky's repertoire contained about 50 operatic roles. These included God's Fool in Boris Godunov by Mussorgsky, Lensky in Yevgeny Onegin by Tchaikovsky, Vladimir Galitsky in Prince Sihar by Borodin, Tsar Berendei in The Snow Maiden by Rimsky-Korsakov. He also performed parts from the repertoire of Western composers, Lohengrin in Wagner's opera of the same name, Count Almaviva in The Barber of Sevilla by Rossini. I have two sides, both Faust and Mephistopheles. I dreamt of singing both these parts in the prologue to Faust, both tenor and bass. This dream never came true. In 1993, Ivan Simonovich Kozlovsky was awarded the honorary title of People's Artist of Ukraine, and the artist passed away in the winter of that same year.
Еще одно последнее сказание.
I've got one final thing to say. One more story, the last, and my chronicle is over. Father lived a long life. Many important historical events passed before his very eyes. He lived longer than a lot and many who decided the fate of his homeland. He was favored by glory and by the great of this world. He knew great love and great betrayal, experienced pain and joy, but only in music did this extraordinary man find comfort. The poet Mikhailo Motosovsky wrote about Ivan Kozlovsky in his lines. He sang as if he decided to sum up the past all at once. He sang not because he had to, but because he could not help but sing.
Моей